السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. باب الإصلاح بين الناس. We continue our book Riyad-us Saliheen by Imam Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi. This is the beginning of the 31st chapter of the book, and the chapter is with regards to making peace amongst people. Islah bayn al-nas. To become a source or to become a reason of creating peace, love between or amongst people. As we had talked about this last night, that Imam Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi brings this chapter with 4 ayats of the Quran. We talked about 2 verses last night, and the next 2 verses of the Quran, inshallah, we'll talk about tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Fattaqullaha wa aslihu dhata bainikum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this particular verse of the Quran, which is Surah Al-Anfal, chapter number 8, verse number 1, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Fattaqullah, fear Allah, bring consciousness of Allah in your life, and adjust the matters of differences amongst you. Fix the matters of differences, adjust the differences amongst yourself. The second ayat of the Quran, we'll go through the details of it together, inshallah, in just a few moments. The next verse of the Quran is from Surah Al-Hujurat, which is the 49th chapter, verse number 10. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. The believers are nothing else but brothers in Islam, in religion. So make reconciliation between your brothers. So 2 verses of the Quran, and again continuing from the topic from last night. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَأَصْلِحُوا ذَاتَ بَيْنِكُمْ. Differences will always occur, right? All of us, even in our own homes, right? I give you my own example, and we all know our own examples. Children, same biological parents, 3 children, 3 minds, 3 mentalities, 3 habits, 3 ways of communication, 3 ways that we treat, right? And sometimes it's very hard for them to get along with one another. So the differences will always remain in cases like this. The voice is dropped? That's fine. Oh, it's coming back. But again, the Quran reminds us at all times that differences will occur. But the fear of Allah or the consciousness of Allah is something that will always bring the people together and will unite their hearts together. I remember a story from the life of Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in. It was the time of the Khilafah of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. And there was a Sahabi radiallahu anhum ajma'in who did not like the opinion of Umar radiallahu anhu. So at this point, he discussed it with another companion, and Umar radiallahu anhu overheard him. As it was Umar radiallahu anhu himself who was hearing him. And at the end of his statement, it was such a strong statement that the Sahabi said. He said, even though we may differ, but our hearts are connected. فَأَصْلِحُوا فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. The fear of Allah, the consciousness of Allah, the love of Allah in the hearts of the people is the reason that will bring islah, will bring togetherness, and will put aside differences of the hearts of individuals. Differences will always remain in ummah. But the fear of Allah, the consciousness of Allah, and the love of Allah, when that is present, then those differences will never become personal. They will never become such that a person will begin to dislike an individual because of a difference of opinion. So the Quran itself is reminding us that fear Allah and adjust the matters of differences amongst you. Let not the differences differ you and separate you, but let this be a means of uniting you and making you together. Then the ayat of the Quran further mentions the ta'alluq or relationship of the believing men and women. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. That indeed Iman is a bond of brotherhood, sisterhood, that is even sometimes stronger than your blood relationships. Sometimes your bond of Iman and Islam and faith becomes greater than the bonds that you may have been given through your blood and through birth itself. Let the bonds of Iman continue and always work towards reconciliation. The Quran always talks about ittifaq, islah, connection, ta'alluq, rather than separation. Yes, there are times when a person would step away from something, and that's also in Islam as well. But that's the last point. I'll finish with this. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his hadith where he defined the perfection of Iman, he began with the hadith by saying that whoever loves for the sake of Allah and whoever dislikes, meaning stepping away sometimes for the sake of Allah, the one who gives for the sake of Allah, withholds for the sake of Allah, has completed their Iman. Scholars from this hadith have mentioned that the words of muhabbat begin in this hadith, meaning that should be our key factor. Try to put aside differences and unite hearts together. When the differences are such that will allow you to not be able to communicate in a manner that will become toxic or something that is not correct, then do not have hatred of people, but step yourself away from something that will not allow you to have your manners and your akhlaq in such a way. So concluding from this particular chapter, the words of Rasulullah ﷺ are reminding us that the fear of Allah will always lead an individual towards islah and reconciliation. So create that fear, consciousness of Allah and work towards reconciliation. Number two, work towards the bond of Iman and faith that Allah has given us. The bond of Iman and faith that Allah has given us is stronger than anything else. That all bonds will break, but the bond of Iman and faith will even remain till the day of Qiyamah, that will stay together with others. So fulfill them, and the Quran ends, and the ayat of the Quran ends with, and work towards reconciliation. Always work towards joining hearts, families, lives together. And that is something that our Iman and Deen accepts us. Shall we turn towards the ahadith next? We ask Allah to give love and affection in our hearts and allow us to practice whatever good has been shared. Inshallah.